This story is titled, "Found Out My Parents Have a Secret Family Instagram Where They Photoshop Me Out of All Pictures Because They're Embarrassed of My Weight." You know that gut-wrenching moment when you discover your whole life has been a carefully crafted lie? That's where I found myself last week, staring at my phone screen at 3 a.m., my hands shaking as I scrolled through an Instagram account that shouldn't exist. An account where my parents present their perfect family to the world, except I'm not in it. Every family photo, every holiday celebration, every milestone moment, digitally altered to erase any trace of me. Their shame of having a fat daughter was so profound that they created an alternate reality where I simply don't exist. I'm Jessica, 19F, and until last week, I thought I had a normal relationship with my parents, Mark, 45M, and Linda, 43F. Sure, there were always little comments about my weight, subtle suggestions about diets, and those disappointed looks when I'd reach for seconds at dinner. But I convinced myself that was just standard parent stuff. You know, the kind of thing everyone deals with. Growing up, I was always the big girl in class. Not huge, just consistently bigger than most of my peers. My mom was a former beauty pageant contestant turned social media influencer who specialized in clean eating and family wellness. My dad worked as a high school gym teacher and football coach. Both of them were fitness fanatics, and then there was me, their only child who preferred books to barbells and never quite fit into their perfect, Instagram-worthy world. My younger cousin Emma, 17F, had always been my closest friend and confidant. She lived a few houses down with my Aunt Rachel, 41F, who was my mom's sister, but her complete opposite, warm, accepting, and more interested in who you were as a person than how you looked in family photos. I never suspected anything was seriously wrong. Yes, my parents were oddly selective about which family photos they posted on their main social media accounts. Yes, they always seemed hesitant to tag me in anything. And yes, sometimes they'd take dozens of pictures at family events, but somehow I'd only end up in one or two of them. But I chalked it all up to them being particular about their social media presence. After all, Mom had over 50,000 followers who looked to her for lifestyle inspiration. I told myself it made sense that she'd want to maintain a certain aesthetic. But nothing could have prepared me for what Emma sent me that night, a link to a private Instagram account with over 15,000 followers. The bio read, "The Mark and Linda Peterson Family Journey Clean Living Fitness Family Goals DM for Coaching Inquiries." The profile picture was my parents with some photoshopped version of what they wished I looked like. Thin, athletic, perfect. As I scrolled through the feed, my whole world started to crumble. There I was, or rather, wasn't. Family vacation photos from our trip to Hawaii last summer, but I'd been completely removed. Christmas morning pictures with presents under the tree, but the space where I'd sat in my flannel pajamas was now empty. Even my high school graduation photos had been altered, my parents standing proudly, but the space between them where I should have been was now seamlessly filled with background. What made it worse? The captions. "Living our best life with our perfect little family. Another blessed day with the ones who matter most. Family fitness goals. Leading by example." Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. But what I found next made my blood run cold. It wasn't just random followers liking and commenting on these photos. I recognized names, extended family members, family friends, even some of my teachers. How long had everyone known about this secret account? How many people had been part of this elaborate charade of pretending I didn't exist? Little did I know, this discovery was just the tip of the iceberg. What would unfold over the next few days would shake the very foundation of everything I thought I knew about my family. I spent the entire night in a daze, going through every single post on that account. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. The more I scrolled, the more horrified I became. This wasn't just a recent thing. This account went back 3 years. 3 years of systematically erasing me from our family's history. 3 years of presenting a false reality to thousands of followers. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to come down for breakfast. How could I sit across from them at our kitchen table, pretending I didn't know about their digital betrayal? I texted Emma, asking her how she'd found the account. Her response made me feel even sicker. She'd accidentally discovered it months ago, but had been struggling with how to tell me. She'd finally decided I needed to know after overhearing something disturbing at a recent family gathering. Apparently, my mom had been offering family transformation coaching services through this account, charging other parents for advice on how to create the perfect family image. She'd been using our edited photos as her portfolio, showing the before pictures with me privately to potential clients and the after pictures without me on the account. She was literally profiting from erasing me from our family's existence. I started connecting dots I'd previously ignored. All those times Mom had insisted on taking family photos but then claimed they didn't turn out right. The way she'd stopped posting on her main social media accounts about a year ago, saying she wanted more privacy. The suspicious way she'd always change the subject when relatives mentioned seeing our family pictures online. Even Dad's recent obsession with learning Photoshop, which he'd claimed was for his school's yearbook committee, suddenly made horrible sense. But here's where things got even more twisted. While going through the account's followers, I noticed something that made my heart stop. Among the followers was Dr. Mitchell, my therapist who I'd been seeing for the past 2 years for my body image issues and anxiety. The same therapist my mom had highly recommended because she was so good with teenage girls struggling with their weight. The same therapist who always seemed to echo my mom's opinions about health and appearance during our sessions. Had my entire support system been compromised? How deep did this deception go? The idea that even my therapy sessions might have been part of their plan to fix me made me feel like I was trapped in some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I went through my phone's photo gallery, looking at all our family pictures from the past few years. With shaking hands, I started comparing them to the posts on the secret account. The attention to detail in the editing was astounding. They hadn't just removed me, they'd carefully reconstructed backgrounds, adjusted lighting, and even added fake shadows where mine should have been. The level of effort they'd put into erasing me from these images was almost as painful as the erasure itself. While in this spiral of discovery, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Rachel. My heart sank as I read it. "Are you okay?" Emma told me what happened. "There's something else you need to know. Can you meet me at the coffee shop downtown? Come alone." The tone of her message sent chills down my spine. What else could there possibly be? And why did she specifically ask me to come alone? What I was about to learn would reveal that the Instagram account was just the beginning of a much darker family secret. The walk to the coffee shop was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Every step felt heavy with dread, my mind racing with possibilities of what Aunt Rachel needed to tell me. When I arrived, I found her already waiting at a corner table, clutching her coffee cup so tightly her knuckles were white. The moment she saw me, her eyes welled up with tears, and Aunt Rachel was definitely not the crying type. I'd always wondered why Aunt Rachel and my mom had such a strained relationship despite living so close to each other. Growing up, I noticed how they'd barely speak at family gatherings, how my mom would make subtle digs about Rachel being the unstable one in the family. Now, as I sat across from my aunt, I was about to learn the real reason for their fractured relationship. Rachel pulled out her phone and showed me something that made my stomach lurch, screenshots of private messages between her and my mom from 2 years ago. In them, my mom was frantically demanding that Rachel remove Facebook photos that included me at Emma's Sweet 16 party. The messages quickly escalated into a heated argument, with my mom claiming I was ruining her brand and destroying potential business opportunities. But that wasn't even the worst part. Rachel then revealed something that shattered what little was left of my world. My mom had been running private Facebook groups for parents of problematic children, her words, not mine. In these groups, she'd share tips about how to minimize their children's presence on social media, including detailed Photoshop tutorials. She'd even written guides about how to pressure overweight children into staying out of family photos. My own mother had built an entire community around the concept of digitally erasing kids who didn't fit their parents' ideal image. As if that wasn't devastating enough, Rachel had discovered that my mom was planning to launch a full-scale online course called Family Image Management. The course would teach parents how to handle children who didn't align with their family's aesthetic goals. I was going to be the secret case study, the before example that she'd completely transformed by erasing. Through her tears, Rachel confessed that she'd been documenting everything for months, saving screenshots and recordings. She hadn't known how to tell me, fearing it would destroy me. But there was more. She'd recently overheard my parents discussing plans to send me to a wellness camp for the entire summer. The same camp where 3 of my mom's success story clients had sent their teenagers, who'd all returned dramatically different. My head was spinning. The Instagram account wasn't just about photos, it was the tip of an iceberg of manipulation and emotional abuse. All those concerned talks about my health, all those helpful suggestions about weight loss programs, they weren't about my well-being at all. They were about marketing, about building a brand, about turning family shame into profit. Rachel reached across the table and grabbed my hand. For the first time, she told me about her own struggles with my mom during their teenage years, how my mom had always been obsessed with image and control. She explained that this was why she'd moved so close to us. She'd always feared something like this would happen, and she wanted to be nearby when it did. Just then, my phone started buzzing with notifications. My heart nearly stopped when I saw what was happening. My mom was doing a live Instagram video on her main account, and the topic was why I'm finally breaking my silence. The truth about family, social media, and personal growth. What my mother was about to reveal to her followers would change everything, and not in the way any of us expected. Rachel and I huddled over my phone, watching in stunned silence as my mother's perfectly made-up face filled the screen. She was sitting in our pristine white home office, the same space where she'd probably spent countless hours editing me out of our family photos. The look on her face was one I'd never seen before, a strange mix of defiance and what looked like triumph. My mother started her video with her typical polished intro, but something was off. Her usually steady hands were shaking slightly as she adjusted her camera. She began by talking about authenticity and truth in the digital age, rich coming from someone who'd built an entire business on lies. But then she dropped the bomb that made my blood freeze. She knew I'd discovered the secret account. Apparently, one of her followers had spotted me looking at the account and had immediately alerted her. But instead of showing remorse or shame, my mother spun it into an opportunity. She began weaving a narrative that painted herself as the victim, claiming she'd created the alternate account to protect me from online bullying and negative attention. She spoke about how today's social media climate was too harsh for sensitive young people still finding their way. The comments section exploded with supportive messages from her followers, praising her bravery and maternal instinct. I felt sick watching hearts and supportive emojis float across the screen. But then she went even further. She announced that this incident had inspired her to launch a new coaching program, Digital Family Protection, Shielding Your Children from Social Media Trauma. The exact opposite of what she'd actually been doing. Rachel was practically shaking with anger beside me. We both knew the truth. This wasn't protection, this was damage control. My mother was rewriting history in real time, turning her systematic erasure of me into a twisted story of maternal sacrifice. But halfway through her carefully crafted speech, something unexpected happened. The comments section suddenly shifted. New voices started appearing, names I recognized. Parents from my high school. Former clients of my mom's. People started asking questions. Wait, isn't this the same account where you were teaching us to edit our kids out? Weren't you just telling us last week that image was everything? I have screenshots of your other advice. My mother's composed facade began to crack. I could see panic creeping into her eyes as more and more comments flooded in, exposing the contradictions in her story. She tried to continue her script, but the damage was spreading faster than she could control it. Some of her biggest followers started publicly unfollowing her right there in the live stream. Then came the biggest shock of all. My dad appeared in the background of the video. He wasn't supposed to be home at this time. The look on his face told me he was hearing all this for the first time too. In all these years of photo editing and secret accounts, had my mother been working alone? The way his face drained of color, the way his hands gripped the doorframe, this wasn't the reaction of a co-conspirator. This was the reaction of a man realizing his wife had been living a double life. The live stream abruptly cut off. Within minutes, my phone erupted with messages. Emma was frantically texting that my mom's main Instagram account was losing followers by the thousands. Screenshots of the secret account were being shared across multiple platforms. The carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing in real time. Rachel gripped my hand tighter and whispered something that made my heart stop. There's something else you need to see. Something about your dad that changes everything. What I was about to learn about my father would force me to question everything I thought I knew about my parents' marriage and make me realize that my mother's Instagram deception was just one part of a much larger family secret. With trembling hands, Rachel pulled out a worn envelope from her bag. The yellowed paper and faded handwriting suggested it was old, really old. As she carefully opened it, she explained that this had arrived at her house just last week, forwarded from their old family address. It was a letter my father had written 15 years ago, but it had never reached its intended recipient. The contents of that letter shook me to my core. It was addressed to his sister, an aunt I never knew existed. In it, my father poured out his guilt and regret about how he'd handled her struggles with an eating disorder when they were teenagers. He described how their parents had forced her into increasingly restrictive diets and wellness programs until she finally ran away at 17. He wrote about how their parents had then erased every trace of her from their family photos and forbidden anyone from mentioning her again. History wasn't just repeating itself. My mother was following a playbook she'd learned from my father's past. But here's the twist that made my stomach turn. The letter revealed that my father had been secretly sending his sister money for years, trying to make amends. The reason? His sister had eventually recovered and become a successful eating disorder counselor. She'd even tried to reach out to our family multiple times over the years, especially after she learned about my birth. Rachel's voice cracked as she revealed the final piece of the puzzle. She'd known my father's sister for years through local counseling circles. In fact, she'd been the one helping my aunt try to reconnect with our family. But my mother had intercepted every attempt, convinced that having a former fat sister-in-law would destroy her perfect family image. My father's letter contained something else, a series of old family photos that showed him with his sister at various ages. Looking at these pictures was like looking in a mirror. His sister and I could have been twins at the same age. Now I understood those long, sad looks my father sometimes gave me when he thought I wasn't watching. I wasn't just his daughter. I was a constant reminder of the sister he'd failed to protect. Suddenly, all those times my dad had quietly intervened during my mom's health lectures, all those secret ice cream runs he'd take me on after particularly rough days, took on a new meaning. He hadn't been strong enough to stand up to my mother directly, but he'd been trying in his own way to keep history from repeating itself. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. "I'm at the park where I used to take you to feed the ducks. Please come. There's someone here you need to meet." Rachel's eyes widened as she read the message over my shoulder. She immediately got up, grabbing her keys. The look on her face told me this wasn't just about meeting my long-lost aunt. Something bigger was about to happen. As we rushed to the park, I had no idea that this meeting would set in motion a chain of events that would not only change my family forever, but would also expose a shocking truth about my mother's own past. The drive to the park was silent, my mind racing with questions. Would I recognize my aunt from those old photos? What would I say to her? And most importantly, what could be so urgent that my dad needed this meeting to happen right now, in the midst of everything else falling apart? As Rachel parked the car, I spotted my dad sitting on our old favorite bench by the duck pond. Next to him was a woman who could only be my Aunt Catherine. The family resemblance was undeniable. But they weren't alone. There was another woman standing nearby, someone whose presence made Rachel gasp and grab my arm so hard it hurt. It was my maternal grandmother. The same grandmother I'd been told had died before I was born. My legs felt like lead as we approached the bench. The look on my grandmother's face was a mix of joy and deep sadness as she took in my appearance. Now I understood why my mother had gone to such lengths to keep us apart. I was the spitting image of her mother, right down to my build and the way I carried myself. The truth came pouring out, each revelation more stunning than the last. My mother hadn't grown up as the pageant queen she'd always claimed to be. She'd been a lot like me, a girl who didn't fit the perfect mold. But unlike me, she'd given in to the pressure. She'd gone through extreme measures to transform herself in her late teens, developing dangerous habits that had nearly killed her. My grandmother had tried to intervene, leading to a massive falling out. Instead of accepting help, my mother had cut all ties, reinvented herself, and begun crafting the narrative of being from a fitness-focused family with a deceased mother. She'd even gone as far as having weight loss surgery in secret, but told everyone it was through clean eating and positive mindset. Her entire empire of wellness coaching was built on a foundation of lies. My grandmother pulled out her phone and showed me her own Instagram account, a private one with only a handful of followers. There I saw hundreds of photos she'd been taking and saving over the years, pictures of me at school events she'd attended in secret, sports days where she'd watched from a distance, dance recitals where she'd slipped in at the back. All those times I'd felt like someone was watching me, someone had been. She and my Aunt Catherine had been working together for years, keeping tabs on me through Rachel, trying to ensure history didn't repeat itself a third time. The recent launch of my mother's secret Instagram account had been the last straw. They couldn't stand by and watch another generation be traumatized by toxic family patterns. But the biggest bombshell was yet to come. Dad pulled out a folder filled with documents, medical records, therapy notes, and legal papers. My mother's carefully curated empire wasn't just morally questionable. She'd been practicing therapy without a license, making medical recommendations she wasn't qualified to give. Some of her success stories had ended up hospitalized. As we sat there processing everything, my phone suddenly lit up with a notification that made everyone freeze. My mother had just tagged me in a new Instagram post. The caption read, "Time to tell the real story. Live video starting in 5 minutes." Rachel tried to grab my phone, but I pulled away. After everything I just learned, I needed to see what new lies, or maybe, finally, what truths, my mother was about to share with the world. But what happened in the next 5 minutes would change not just our family, but the lives of thousands of her followers, in ways none of us could have predicted. We all huddled around my phone as my mother's face appeared on screen. But this wasn't the polished, camera-ready mom I was used to seeing. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes red and puffy. For the first time in my life, I was seeing my mother without her carefully constructed mask. The chat immediately flooded with concerned comments from her followers, but she ignored them all. Instead, she looked directly into the camera and did something I'd never seen her do before. She started crying. Not the pretty, controlled tears she'd use in her emotional inspiration videos, but raw, ugly sobbing that made her whole body shake. Then, to everyone's shock, she held up an old photograph, one that mirrored the pictures my grandmother had just shown me. It was my mother as a teenager, looking exactly like me. She finally told the truth about everything. Her own struggles with body image, the extreme measures she'd taken to transform herself, the shame that had driven her to erase her past and her family. But the most surprising part was when she admitted that every time she looked at me, she saw her former self, the self she'd tried so hard to destroy. Her obsession with erasing me from photos wasn't really about me at all. It was about erasing the last remnants of her own past, her own pain, her own shame. As she spoke, I noticed movement in the background of her video. Someone was in the house with her. Then the camera shifted, and there was collective gasp from everyone watching with me at the park. Dr. Mitchell, my therapist, was there. But she wasn't there as a therapist. Through tears, my mother revealed that Dr. Mitchell was actually her own secret eating disorder counselor, someone who'd been trying to help her face her demons for the past 3 years. The entire family transformation coaching business had been my mother's elaborate coping mechanism, a way to maintain control and project her internal struggles onto others. Dr. Mitchell had been trying to guide her toward coming clean, but my mother had resisted until now. My grandmother suddenly stood up from the bench, pulled out her own phone, and did something incredible. She requested to join my mother's live video. For a moment, everything went quiet. The join request notification popped up on my mother's screen. Her hand shook as she saw the name. After a long pause, she pressed accept. What followed was something I never thought I'd witness. A real, raw conversation between 3 generations of women who'd been torn apart by the same destructive patterns. My mother saw her mother's face for the first time in 2 decades. They both cried. They both apologized. They both shared their pain. The live viewer count kept climbing as people witnessed this unscripted moment of genuine human connection. Comments poured in from followers sharing their own stories of family trauma, secret struggles, and the pressure to maintain perfect images. Then my mother did something that changed everything. She started deleting her coaching accounts right there on the live stream. With trembling fingers, she removed the false perfect family photos, the edited images, the toxic advice. She promised to get proper help, to make amends, to use her platform to promote healing instead of harm. 2 weeks have passed since that day. The road ahead isn't easy. My mother has entered proper therapy, not just with Dr. Mitchell but with a whole team of professionals. She's temporarily stepped away from social media to focus on healing our family. My father has finally found the courage to stand up and be the protector he failed to be for his sister. My Aunt Catherine is now a regular part of our lives, helping both me and my mother navigate this new reality. As for me, I'm learning that healing doesn't happen in perfectly filtered Instagram posts. It happens in messy, real moments of vulnerability and truth. My grandmother and I have weekly lunch dates where we're making up for lost time. Rachel and Emma have been my rocks throughout all of this. Yesterday, my mother asked if she could take a family photo, a real one this time. No editing, no filters, no pretense, just us, exactly as we are. It's not perfect, but it's authentically us. And for the first time in my life, I saw my mother genuinely smile when she looked at a picture that included all of me. Sometimes the happiest endings don't come from achieving perfection, but from finally being brave enough to embrace our imperfections. Our family will never be the kind that belongs on a perfect Instagram feed, and that's exactly what makes us real.